Welcome to Massive Epic Tiny Battles, and today we are refighting the first battle of the American Civil War with 6mm miniatures. This is the most important battle of the American Civil War. 3 months after firing on Fort Sumter, the Yankees finally decided to invade the South. Barely 20 miles from Washington, the rebel army sits along the defensive banks of the Bull Run. With notice of the imminent attack, the Confederates call in reinforcements from the Shenandoah Valley. With civilians and partygoers from the capital watching from nearby picnics, the stage is set for the first battle of the American Civil War. 2 green armies, equal in size, would decide the fate of America. For today's battle, we have 2 remote commanders which drop their battle plans and send them out to be executed. Our Union player decides to try a cautious approach. He sends Hunter's division to the far northwest crossing on a long march, hoping it will be lightly guarded. He also sends Heintzelman's division through the stone bridge. He then decides to deploy the rest of his forces guarding below the heights of Centerville. Our Confederate player also takes an ahistorical approach to this battle. He chooses aggression. Almost instinctively, he decides to take advantage of the immediate uncontested river crossings and cross at all points, and sets up a massed cannon battery at the stone bridge. When our deployment is done and orders are received, it looks as if both sides had successfully countered each other's plans. The Confederates deploy across the river in mass lines to form their battle line. The Union hangs back at rifle range and uses their volley fire to get some early demoralization hits on them. Meanwhile, on the Union west flank, Heintzelman's division prepares to charge the stone bridge, while Hunter's division moves out toward the far crossing as lead elements of Beauregard's division move towards them as well. In the first couple turns, the Confederate forces are arranging their lines for a coordinated attack on Centerville. The Union manages to disrupt this coordination on their east flank, and some of the weaker units run away, crossing back over the river. Meanwhile, the Confederate center is having a traffic jam, having issues trying to bring the full division's weight to bear. The rules we're using for this game are live free or die. In this game, you can either fire 1 die per base and then move, or you may fire 2 die per base and remain stationary. This is where the defending Union troops have the advantage, as they can just focus on firing while the Confederates are still trying to maneuver into position while exchanging fire. At the stone bridge, the Union efforts to secure have been turned into a massacre. The 1st Brigade's attempt to charge up is viciously opposed when they lose half of their force. The 2nd Brigade, then near routing themselves due to demoralization, decides to fire on the cannons with their rifles, but with little effect. When the Confederate cannons unload their devastating canister shot, they send them into panic, and on their way back to safety cause the 1st Brigade to panic again en route. Of the original 10 bases of Heintzelman's division, there are now a total of 4. Over on the far northwest flank, the Union forces advance in line to push back the advancing Confederates. Unfortunately for the South, they do not manage to get out of column formation until it is too late. Palmer's cavalry manages to make first contact and gets in there for some close combat, and manages to send the weakest brigade running past the river crossing. The day is half over, and at this midpoint in our game, it is looking like the Southern Pride is going to receive some mighty humbling efforts. Nothing is working for them, and worst of all of the dice rolls are favoring the Union. You may have noticed some of the very nice looking buildings in the background. All of these buildings and all of the other buildings from other videos on this channel are all from Pico Armor. They have an amazing, easy to paint range of 3mm and 2mm terrain, which works great for all of your grand tactical needs. The Confederate battle plan was to use Johnston's division to encircle Centerville, but now his forces have almost all dissolved, with Stonewall Jackson's brigade the only one left following their orders. As they got fired upon again and again, there Jackson stood like a stone wall. Then Johnston uses his 3-star rating to get some extra command points, just enough to send Stonewall Jackson in to charge Sherman's brigade. His charge causes the rest of the Union's division to hastily fire upon them, but with no effect, and when they slam into Sherman with their rebel yell, they send him routing back into Centerville, shaken and demoralized. Over on the far northwest, Evans and Holmes' brigade have retreated past the river crossing. They are now getting prepared to hold off the Union from crossing until nightfall. Early's brigade is yet to rout, and they manage to destroy Palmer's cavalry. They then form to take the Union massed volleys without wavering. In the center of the battlefield, the Confederates manage to maneuver their battle line to maximum efficiency. They are able to bring all of their guns to bear. With lead and smoke riddling the battlefield, both sides fire everything they got. And when the smoke lifts, there is only one side left standing. The dice change and the Confederate player rolls the best he ever has. Almost every Union unit loses a base and then fails their morale test, while the Confederates remain perfectly unwavered. In the rules we're using today, live free or die, when a unit routs and it passes by another friendly unit, it suffers 3 demoralization points. And when it interpenetrates a unit, both of them suffer a demoralization point. This causes a mass rout on the Union line, and where the Union line snakes from Centerville to the tree line, all of the units interpenetrate each other, and as a result, those units are completely destroyed. With the Union center crushed and the rest of their line completely fragmented, the Northern player decides to retreat and concede defeat. It was a much needed victory that the Confederates had earned. In our game today, the North had over 3,000 casualties, while the South had only lost 1,050 men. This was very close to the historical Confederate victory. In fact, perhaps it was better. Thank you for watching our game today.